I want to talk about a very, very hard subject. And there's nothing you can do about it. There is no solution for you concerning other people. No solution at all. Zero. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, here's what I'm going to talk about. When you take regular human nature, human behavior, and you combine with that all the luxuries and pleasures and sinful things we have available here in the United States of America. Do you know in America, a poor person lives better than like the richest Roman during the Roman Empire? Oh, yeah. Do you know in America, a middle-class person lives better than King Solomon did back then? If you look at everything you have, big house, big cars, cappuccinos, fast food, electricity, automobiles, gasoline, you fly on vacations, health insurance, life insurance, you got a steady job. You actually live a more comfortable life. I mean, King Solomon had to go out and actually do some work and actually do something, or he had to go somewhere to get something. Or when King David in the Bible went to battle, he might have had to go 100 miles on horseback to fight these guys for weeks or months. The only thing we got to do is call the police or the fire department and the problem's solved. When you take what's going on with human behavior, now this is not the point I'm going to make. I'm just setting this up for a point I'm going to make soon. When you take this human behavior and combine that with all the incredible luxuries that we have here in the United States of America. Now, you just don't believe it. You say, I don't got any luxuries. I'm poor. I barely make $90,000 a year. I barely make $60,000 a year. I'm struggling. You know, we live in a society today. We live in the first society where $70,000 income for two people working is average. You know why there's poor people? There's like 3 reasons that poor people exist. Number 1 is bad financial decisions. Number 2 is they don't work enough. And number 3 is they spend too much money and don't save enough. If you make bad decisions in life, you're going to make bad financial decisions in life. Having a savings account proves that you are not completely out of control. I mean, I'm talking about someone who saved their money. There's a lot of people who inherit their parents' money and then they waste it immediately. Completely out of control. So let me say, so when you got a person, now here's the point I'm making, here's the point of the video. There's nothing you can do to help them. Nothing, nothing, nothing. When you have a person who's around you or close to you, when you have a person who is around you or close to you, and they come and ask you for help, you can't help them. Just like a homeless person on the street today, you can't help them. You know, we got this, one of the biggest lies being told today is 100% of homeless people, they just don't have enough free stuff, and they They're not responsible for their situation. And that is 100% false. 100% false. Now, I'd say about 30% of them are mentally ill. And there are a few homeless people that made bad financial decisions in life, or their spouse left them something, you know. But the rest of them are on drugs. If you go to a homeless person and ask them, right on the street, say, I'll give you $10 to answer these 2 questions. How many homeless people do you think are mentally ill? They say about 30%. How many homeless people are on drugs? They say 65%. I've seen the videos of the homeless people answering the question. 65% of homeless people are on either drugs or alcohol. Now, I'm not here to talk about homeless people. When you got someone that comes to you and says, I need some help, and then they lay it on, they say, and you are the only one who can help me solve my problem. Even if you had $1 million in the bank and you gave them the $1 million, then you would be broke, and within 3 months they would spend the $1 million and be broke also. The Bible says very clear, if a man cannot handle $1, he's not going to be able to handle $100, and if he can't handle $100, he's not going to be able to handle 1,000, and so on and so forth. 60% of people today never see $1,000 because they never save $1,000 and put it in the bank. I hear people all the time, I got a 401k. Well, how old are you? I'm 45 years old. Okay, well, you can't touch it for 15 more years. Yeah, but I got a lot of money in a 401k. You don't have anything. The stock market has your money, and you cannot legally touch it. You are not legally allowed to touch it unless you want to take a whole bunch of penalties and fees and get about half what it's worth. People say, I got a lot of money in a home equity. Well, I bet that just drives people crazy. I'm a rich man. My house is worth $400,000. I'm like, how much do you owe on it? Well, we still owe $200,000. Okay, so you have $200,000. Yeah, I'm a rich man. No, you're not. The bank has your money. You gave that money to the bank, and they're not giving it back. The only way you can get the money that you claim makes you rich is sell your house. You know, I was listening to this program the other day. This woman and her husband were 80 years old. 80 years old. They had $100,000 in debt. And they had a house that was worth $3 million. And she was asking the person, how do I pay off my $100,000? Because we both are living on Social Security. And the guy on the program said, sell your house. Pay off your debt and retire with $2.5 million in the bank. What are you talking about? You're 80 years old. You're going to be dead in 5 or 10 years. Try to enjoy life and then give $1 million to your children when you die. Why are you sitting in a house? The lady said, well, my husband won't let me sell it because he's dying of a disease. And we've had this property for 40 years and he won't let me sell it. Wow. The person said, I can't help you then. I can't help you. You're sitting on $3.5 million in equity and you won't sell it. I can't help you. Because you can't get past that thinking. Now, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you something very wise that a person told me once, someone who was close to me. Because we had a mutual friend call me who was a drug addict looking for my help and telling me that if I do not help them, you know, they're going to die. It's going to be all my fault. So my other friend, who is an expert in drug rehabilitation, said, no, you can't help them. I said, but it sounds like, and this is when I learned, this was like 10 years ago. This is when I learned everything about drug addicts. And they said, you can't help them. I said, well, they said on their last chance. They said, no, that's not true with drug addicts. Every drug addict has 7 to 10 options, people they can go to, but they don't want to go to them. You're probably the third easiest one on the list, he told me. They went to the first two, it didn't work, and a drug addict or a person with addiction goes down the list in the order of the easiest people to get help from with no questions asked. This person told me, I guarantee when you tell this person, no, I cannot help you, they have 5, 6, 7 more people that they'll just go to next to see if they can get some help. And then if they do get help, they'll take the money they got. They might be on their way to the bank to pay the rent. It's like a person with a gambling addiction. But then they'll drive down a certain road and spend all the money on drugs anyway. The person taught me you have to let them hit bottom. I said, yeah. I never gave them any help. They called me. They wanted like $1,000. It was someone close to us. They wanted like $1,000. And this person's wife made more than me and my wife combined at the time. But because they were a drug addict, they spent all the money. I've seen people with gambling addictions spend every dime they got, and if they walk out of the casino, I saw it. I mean, I lived in Vegas for 4 months once. And if they walk outside and find a quarter on the sidewalk, they'll walk right back into the machines to see if they can win all their money back with a quarter. I'm not making fun of it. Here's the moral of the story. You can't help them. Here's the only thing that'll help a person. Here's the only thing that'll help them is if they help themselves. Do you know in America, anybody can get free food? If you're on the streets, anybody can get free food. Anybody can stand on a corner with a cardboard sign and pick up $20 in the next 2 hours. I went to the store today. I'm 63 years old, almost. I saw 2 70-year-old people living in a van with big, huge signs yelling at each car, come on, give us some money, give us some money. And they were 70 years old living in like a $10,000 van in the parking lot. At 70 years old, a man and a woman begging for free money from people with little children and everything just driving by. I waved at them, politely and stopped at the stop sign and smiled and drove away to what I was doing. The next car behind me pulled over and gave them some cash. 70 years old, living in a $10,000 van, begging for people's $10 bills on the street. So do you think that $10 helped them? Did that $10 help them solve their problem? See, that's what I am. I'm a solution guy. Because I was a restaurant manager for 25 years. And I was used to solving 10 or 20 problems every single day. That's the name of the game. You have a problem, you come up with a solution immediately. And a permanent solution. A permanent solution. Not a temporary solution, a permanent solution. You know, unfortunately, we live in a society today. 60% of people are overweight, but nobody really wants to lose the weight. They just want to keep eating the junk food. 70% of people are poor, but they don't want to go without anything and save money. They don't, those 70%, they might complain about being poor, but they really don't want to say, I'm going to stop spending at 90% of my paycheck and save the rest of the 10%. They don't want the solution. Just like the person on drugs, I was only just one of 10 of their solutions, you know, people that they could call. And I was like third on the list. And then, of course, I didn't help the person. And then, you know, they don't talk to you for 6 months. And then they call you 6 months later and say, oh, yeah, you know, no, there was no problem. No, I'm fine. I just need something. It's fine. It all worked out, man. But you know they're still on drugs. There's some people that want to call you. You don't want to answer the phone. Don't answer the telephone. You know exactly what's coming. Now, let me finish this up here. This is the moral of the story. I always like to give the solution of what I'm talking about. You can't help anyone unless they want to help themselves. Everyone knows the saying, give a man free fish and you feed him for, you know, 1 day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. But nobody wants to be taught how to fish. They want the free fish in our society today. You want what's free. When you live a life of getting free stuff for a long time, it's almost impossible to break free of that. I knew a guy, he inherited a $250,000 farm in 1982 from his parents. Now this was back when gambling, it was hard to find a gambling joint. This guy spent the entire $250,000 inheritance in 1 year. Then he went to rehab for 9 months. Then he got out, and I gave him a job. I gave him a chance as a prep cook in one of the restaurants I was managing. He was 35 years old or 40 years old, and I was only 21 years old. Something like that. Now, I never even heard about this in my entire life. I never even knew it was at 20 years old. I didn't even know this was a possible thing. that people went through in the big cities. I did not know. He got his paycheck, 40 hours work. It was like $187, you know, less than a third of what we make today. Well, about 25%. Now, I never knew he had a gambling problem. He cashed his check at the bank down the street and never came back. And the reason I found all this out, his wife called me and started chewing me out, screaming and yelling, "How could you do this to him? You're not supposed to give him money." I said, "Excuse me, who are you?" "I'm his wife." I said, "I never knew he had a gambling problem until you called me today." I said, "That's on you, not me. I'm not married to it. You never called me and told me this guy has a gambling problem. Don't give him his paycheck." So she was crying. She said, "You're right." She said, "We've been dealing with this for about 10 years. I told her, I said, the best thing you could do is leave. I said, "Do you have children by him?" She said, "No, we don't." I said, "Then go to your parents and let him hit rock bottom and see if he cares that he lost you." She said, "Actually, this was his last chance." See, she's the one that thought she could this is the moral of the story. She's the one who thought she could help him all those years. And because of his addiction, he was just using her all these years, spending her paychecks, everything. She never once allowed him to hit rock bottom. She never once allowed it to happen. She kept rescuing him and prolonging the process for 10 years. But you know, I look at these homeless people on the street. Whatever their addiction is or their problem or whatever's going on with them, they've already hit rock bottom. They're sleeping in a ditch with very little food, a little cash, and a bottle of booze and some drugs. They're in a ditch, in a muddy, filthy ditch covered with bugs. And it's still not enough to change them. It's still not enough to change that kind of a personality. So let me finish this up. You can't help them. The Bible doesn't tell you to help these kind of people. It says, love them, have compassion on them, pray for them. If they ask for money, give them a sandwich. If they need shoes, go ahead and buy them a pair of shoes, but don't give them the receipt to the shoes or they'll take them back and get the money and spend it on drugs. I actually personally made that mistake once. I saw a homeless guy at a cash register and I paid for a pair of pants he had. He was telling everybody, "Oh, I need these for work." And so this was a few years ago. So I paid for them. It was like $15. I went to the restroom before I left the store. And when I came out of the restroom, the guy was at the customer service with the receipt returning the $15 pair of pants that I just bought. It was like at a Walmart, so they gave him the money and took the pants back. He went from the cash register right over to the customer service to get the money. And I mean, I didn't know a lot about this stuff, but I went over and said, "What are you doing, man?" He told me the truth. He said, "Well, I just kind of scammed people. I need the money more." I said, "Well, you got a very long, hard road I hope you find Jesus. You can't help them. You can't help anyone who doesn't want the actual help. If they don't actually want to be helped, you can't help them. So in other words, what I've learned over the years, if someone is unwilling to help themselves, now I want to say this because this really is the golden nugget of wisdom here. If anyone, a man or a woman, is unwilling to help themselves, then they don't care about you very little. They care very little about you or anybody else around them. If you don't respect yourself enough, to climb out of your hole or the ditch you're living in, or ask for help. You know, we went through a time here over the past, I don't know, quite a few years, that the government was trying to convince us if we just spend a few billion more dollars, then people's problems will be solved. And that's not true. If a person has been fat for a long time, it means they don't want to stop eating healthy. They don't want to eat healthy. And they don't want you to talk about it. You know, I find human behavior so amazing. And on the other hand, it's so sad to watch. I mean, I know people who have been married for 30 years on drugs. If you give them $1.50, they'll go up to the casino instantly. It's amazing. I don't even know how they survive. I know people who are extremely happily married for like 25 years. They're the happiest people on earth, but they spend 101% of their paycheck every month. It's the craziest thing to watch. If you were to say to them, have you ever thought about saving even 2% of your take-home pay? They look at you like you're an alien from another planet. You know, people got to lose like 40 pounds. I say, well, if you just lost like 5 pounds, you'd be getting started and you'd feel a lot better. Just lose the first 5 pounds and then go from there. And they say, no, I got to lose the whole 40 or nothing. Well, here, I'm going to finish this up. Keep it under 30 minutes, hopefully. Here's the deal. They don't want help. I'm going to end it with this. You can't help them. You can't help them. If a person, a man or a woman, is unwilling to help themselves, if they're unwilling to help themselves, then how do you think that you're going to help them? It's one of the most profound questions we never hear in society anymore. You know, when I was younger, you know, before I turned 18, that was one of the main things. You know, the adults, especially the men, they would say, get off your ass and help yourself. Stop being a lazy, you know, dumbass. Don't be lazy. Get off your butt and help yourself. They say, you want something. Don't be begging people for something. You get out there, you do it, you get a job, and you put forth the work and the effort. That's really not the thing that's going on today. That's really not the theme with young men today. It's what can I get for free and what can I get for very little effort. I mean, today, people really, truly believe. They really, truly believe that they're going to go online, be an influencer, and make $100,000 a year for doing almost nothing. Maybe one out of 100,000 people actually accomplish that.